Ah, yes, we can hear the screams of Texas, fight, Boomer, Sooner, already on the state fairgrounds at the Great State Fair of Texas. Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship Podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns247.com, joined as always by my esteemed colleague and proud Tampa Catholic graduate, the one and only Eric Henry. Eric, you and I are getting ready to head to Big D for the greatest game day atmosphere in sports, Texas and Oklahoma, as the fans wade through the state fair, the corny dogs, the fried foods that you can't even imagine, and then settle into their seats in the Cotton Bowl, divided into 50, half burnt orange, half crimson. They will settle down and get their chin straps nice and tight. I don't think anyone wears a neck roll anymore, but this is one of those games where you better bring it or you're going to get run over, Eric. The most physical team wins this game. Are you ready?
Chip, not only am I ready, I have been ready. I've been looking forward to this week, quite frankly, since my first Red River Shootout last year. From the moment I walked out of the Cotton Bowl, I knew I wanted more of that. The only thing about the Red River Shootout that I'm not a fan of, and unless someone has a different way and I just don't know it, is getting back up to the press box from post-game. Chip, I was told to take the stairs all the way up through the stands. Outside of that, I love every bit of the Red River Shootout. I'm looking forward to walking up at the state fair. I do wish it was an 11 o'clock start, but even with the 2:30 kick, I'm looking forward to walking up through the fair, making my way to the stadium, and just being in that atmosphere. So yes, I've been ready.
Yeah, it's been kegs and eggs at 11 for a while now. Texas is in the SEC. I'm hearing it's going to be 2:30 more often than not. This game will never be at night. Don't ever hold out hope for that. Both Texas and Oklahoma have said, nah, we're good getting our fans in and getting them out of the State Fair of Texas. Gets even nuttier at night, as we all know. But here's the thing. Texas is a 14.5-point favorite in this game, and 9 of the last 11 games in this series have been one-score games. Last year, Texas was a 5-point favorite. Quinn Ewers struggled with turnovers. One, definitely his fault. The other kind of skipped off the hands of Jatavian Sanders as he was getting pummeled by his high school teammate at Denton Ryan, Billy Bowman. Billy Bowman also had the unbelievable stop against Xavier Worthy right at the goal line when Texas had first and goal from the 1 and didn't get in early in the fourth quarter. Billy Bowman is back. So is Danny Stutzman, who, even though his defense kind of got flattened there at the end of the game, Texas came back from a 27-17 deficit to take a 30-27 lead. But then the Texas defense could not hold Oklahoma. And we'll get into the depth, Eric, because that was a game where Jalen Ford, the middle linebacker for Texas, played 82 snaps in sweltering heat. It was his worst game of the year. I don't think Texas is going to have to have any linebacker play 82 snaps, or can this OU offense even get to 82 snaps? That might be a good take it or leave it question, but I'll just ask you right now. You think this OU offense gets to 65 plays?
Chip, I'm going to answer that question and also circle back to something you mentioned about the kickoff time, just out of a genuine curiosity. Working in reverse, 65 snaps. That is an interesting number, Chip. In order for Oklahoma to reach 65, they're going to have to run the football. They're going to have to run the football. If you remember in last year's game, you want to know what kept Jalen Ford and Jahdae Barron on the field for the entire game? It was Dylan Gabriel's ability to extend plays with his legs, timely third down conversions, extending drives, long drives. I don't have the number exactly on me. I remember, if memory serves me correct, there were at least 3 or 4 drives in last year's game that went north of 4.5 minutes. I mean, that's going to keep your defense on the field for a while. So
Oklahoma's drives, they had drives of 13 plays, 78 yards, 10 plays, 75 yards, 9 plays, 67 yards, 13 plays, 75 yards. Yeah, there were a lot of long drives.
There you go, right? So it may have even been more than 4. I thought my recollection said 4, maybe more than that. So there you go, right? In order for Oklahoma to reach that, you're going to have to get those third down conversions, or ideally go first to second. Now, even if you go first to second, maybe you don't get those 13 play drives, Chip. But to your point that you just made, as I said, that's what caused that game to be so long for Texas's defense. If you're asking me right now, I don't necessarily know that I see Oklahoma getting to 65, Chip. I think, and maybe, I'm foreshadowing a little bit into how we see this game playing out. If Oklahoma is going to beat Texas, it's going to be Texas's ability to, or maybe inability, I should phrase it, to hang on to the football. And that could put them in the high 50s, 60-ish range. But what that also could do, Chip, in my mind, is give Oklahoma short fields. And that's the only route that I see OU reaching that. This is a Texas offense, especially with Quinn Ewers, not really turn the football over in the red zone, not turn the football over on the opposing side of the field. So, yeah, that's the way that I think if OU wins that game and they find enough points, that's going to be the recipe. But I don't necessarily know that I see it being the type of game. Not that Michael Hawkins certainly isn't capable, Chip, of extending plays with his legs. I don't know that I see it being that game. So I'll let you chew on that, but I do want to sneak in, Chip. Is the reason, or is a reason, I shouldn't say the reason, that the Red River Shootout will never be a night game? Is it just too combustible of a situation to allow fans to get lathered up for the entire afternoon and then say, hey, go watch 4 quarters of football and then send them back out into the fair?
Well, that and the fact that the entire fair shuts down.
Oh, okay. Got it.
At 10 o'clock. And so that's always been the agreement, that they're not going to extend the hours of the fair for the football game. Plus, you think traffic is bad getting in and out of the football game? Imagine the fair emptying at the same time the football game is emptying. So it's really more logistics than fan behavior, but you're probably not far off. I mean, that is maybe an intended consequence of playing this game in the afternoon. But Eric, OU only had 47 plays against Auburn. So they did have 68 plays against Tennessee. That was a home game. Auburn was on the road. This is sort of half and half, but I do think it's going to be interesting to see how Michael Hawkins handles Michael Hawkins Jr., the first freshman to start a Red River Shootout in the history of Oklahoma football. See how he handles this atmosphere. He's been making good decisions. He's not getting much help from his running game. His offensive line is a patchwork of transfers who have struggled. Maybe they figured it all out in the off week. This is a weird nugget. This is the first time in the history of this 100+ year series that both teams are coming off of an off week. So there could be some new wrinkles from both sides, but I've realized I didn't even finish my thought on Danny Stutzman. Billy Bowman's back, so's Danny Stutzman. Danny Stutzman, despite the OU defense getting trampled there at the end of last year's game, giving up that field goal that allowed Texas to take a 30-27 lead. He made a T-shirt with a picture of him smoking a cigar, wearing the golden hat, wearing some sunglasses. Now, he's a Florida guy, Eric. He's
Florida.
from Windermere, Florida.
It was same area. Go ahead.
Okay, so tell me about this. He's very flashy. We know Florida football players got swag, Flash, Dion's from Florida, Michael Irvin. Now you got Danny Stutzman with this T-shirt that he made. And on the back of that T-shirt, it said, and this apparently, these were the closing words to his pregame speech to his teammates. Oklahoma only fears God. Texas fears Oklahoma. So he put that on the back of the T-shirt. Then he got Brent Venables to model it. And of course, that picture went viral. And Danny Stutzman was asked about, oh, you're probably going to hear about this if OU loses to Texas on Saturday. And he said, it is what it is. If you get punched, you got to respond. That's what he told Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman on the Oklahoma Breakdown podcast. He also thought that Quinn Ewers took a photo with a victory cigar after beating OU 49-0 in 2022. That was not the case. Quinn Ewers took a photo with a victory cigar after winning at Alabama in 2023, just 2 weeks, I think, two weeks before the Oklahoma game last year. So I think we've got a marquee matchup, Eric. We've got Quinn Ewers coming back from 3 missed games, with his injury, the ab strain, the oblique strain. I think he could have played against Mississippi State. Steve Sarkisian wanted to play it safe. He wanted to get that, oblique muscles much time to heal as possible. But Quinn Ewers, if Quinn Ewers is the Quinn Ewers we saw at Alabama, at Michigan, I think Texas wins this game comfortably, maybe even covers. And I think Quinn Ewers wants to, leave Texas with a winning record against Oklahoma. What say you?
All right, Chip, can I come back to Danny Stutzman for a second before I get to Quinn?
Oh, yeah. We got to get to give me the Florida intel on this guy.
I want to say this first off. I don't know Danny Stutzman's background. Danny Stutzman went to Foundation Academy, which is a private school in Winter Garden. Chip, Windermere / Winter Garden / the general area that Danny Stutzman is from. And again, I want to emphasize, I don't know his background. So I could be, this is just me having lived in Orlando for 5 years. I have family that lives in Ocoee. Ocoee is 15 minutes from Winter Garden. I used to drive through Winter Garden all the time. Danny Stutzman, Chip, is roughly from an area that would be analogous to Westlake or Lake Travis. There's an area, Windermere is basically right next to a community called Islesworth, Chip, where Islesworth was made famous.
That's where all the golfers live.
Greg Norman and Ken Griffey Jr. and Penny Hardaway back in the day, and insert famous celebrity who lived at who was it? NSYNC, right? Like, that's where they're from. That's where they live. So, and Tiger, I went Greg Norman first, then left out Tiger. That should have been first and foremost. Again, well, I don't know Danny Stutzman's background. I'm just putting that out there as a measure, a fact, Chip. So that's why I do. Go ahead, Chip. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the kid is tough as nails. I love his game.
Absolutely.
He said on that podcast with Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman, we got to be ready to give up our bodies to make these tackles, no matter how painful it is. I mean, the guy has his mind right. And Billy Bowman, both of those guys were on the field for the 49-0 Red River rout by Texas in 2022. And they played like it last year.
Just so I'm clear. Michael Taff and Ethan Burke, right? Those are Westlake guys. Like, I'm not saying just because they may come from an area that's a little prestigious that they're not tough, right? And Danny Stutzman, I thought coming into last year, in our, I'll divulge this, in our 24/7 sports vote of, Big 12, I thought Danny Stutzman was the first teamer over Jalen Ford when I voted that precinct. So, like, I have all the respect in the world for Danny Stutzman's game. I do just find a little bit of the bravado to be, I find it interesting. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
In terms of Quinn, no, listen, this is, and I'm not big, Chip, on the whole legacy game and stuff like that. Like, because guess what? For all intents and purposes, Quinn Ewers could lose and Texas could lose this game and go win a national title, and legacy is still, yet to be written. So I'm not big on those superlatives or the kind of the hyperbolic talk of things like that. However, Chip, did you hear? And I hate to spring this on you on the air. Did you hear Brian Bosworth's interview in relation to when he met Quinn Ewers? Did you happen to hear that, Chip?
No.
Oh man, I should have sent it to you before the show. It's super interesting. Brian Bosworth, he's doing an Oklahoma based show. I can't remember if it was a radio show or a podcast. And Bosworth is saying like, I didn't know. Basically, no one told him that Quinn was going to be the deputy, right? That he just
in the
kind of
Dr. Pepper Fansville commercial.
He found it out the day of. They're like, hey, it's going to be Quinn Ewers. And Bosworth says, hey, I had to. You can't not like the kid. He's so humble and he works hard and he's a respectful young man. You can't not like him. He says, and this is basically a direct quote, I just wish he were in crimson and white as opposed to burnt orange and whatever. And then he goes on this rant about, no one looks good in burnt orange. What is burnt? No one owns anything in burnt orange, right? So I'm only saying that as to say, from the Texas OU standpoint, you're talking about a Quinn Ewers is a DFW kid, Texas native, Tarrant County, come on, Quinn is from Southlake. Thank you. Southlake. It means a lot for him, right? Because he wants to leave on a personal note with a winning record, a winning legacy over OU. So I think from a personal perspective, yeah, this means everything to Quinn. And I just thought that sound clip and Chip, I also have to, unfortunately you won't be able to hear it and react in real time. I wish you could hear it and provide thoughts. I know someone who's been around this rivalry forever, you would have thoughts on what Bosworth said. He took it in all good fun and put over Quinn as being respectful. But that to me kind of cements everything that you talk about, everything that everyone who tells me about this rivalry talks about is about the importance long-term of beating OU.
Yeah. Brian Bosworth famously said, burnt orange makes me puke. Now, 1984 is the last time that Texas came into this game ranked number one. 1984, Brian Bosworth was playing, and he forced a fumble that led to an OU touchdown in a 15-15 tie. I talked to Todd Dodge, who, legendary high school coach, won state championships at Westlake. He was the quarterback for Texas that day. He was 6 of 24 with a touchdown pass and an interception. It was a driving rainstorm. He said at one point he got hit near the OU sideline. He slid underneath the OU bench. That was when the Cotton Bowl was AstroTurf. And he's getting out from under the bench, and there's Barry Switzer standing over him wearing a Beat Texas baseball cap, smoking a cigarette. And he says, TD, how you doing? And Todd Dodge said, I've been better, coach. But it's that kind of, Switzer had kind of a little comb over deal going. So in the rain, he just took whatever hat was available. I don't know if a fan gave it to him or what, but he's literally on the sideline wearing a hat that says Beat Texas. It is just classic Switzer stuff. And of course, all the OU fans say that Keith Stanberry, intercepted the ball on the penultimate play of the game. The officials kind of had contrasting signals, but they ruled he was juggling the ball. So they said incomplete. That cleared the way for Jeff Ward to kick a 32-yard game winner as game-tying field goal as time expired. 15-15 tie. Both fans left the Cotton Bowl chanting, "We're number one." Neither team finished that season number one. But that's how they remember this game, Eric. I mean, you make enough plays in a game or a memorable play like Billy Bowman did last year, like Stoney Clark did in 94. You're gonna be remembered forever. Peter Gardier, quarterback at Texas, the only quarterback in this rivalry to win all 4 games during the only quarterback to win 4 games in this series ever, either side. And people call him Peter the Great. He played on some, the 1990 team was the Shock the World team. He was on that team. And that was a memorable team, but the others, not so much. So I'm just saying you can become a legend in this game. And I think Quinn Ewers has a chance to, he was a legend in 2022 for winning 49-0, the most lopsided win for Texas, the most lopsided Texas win in the series. But then last year, coughs it up, 3 turnovers. He got sacked 5 times. Now here's my question, Eric. The OU defense is playing really good football. Brent Venables, in addition to having Stutzman and Billy Bowman back, went to the transfer portal, brought in Dominic Williams from TCU. He brought in Dejon Terry from Tennessee on the defensive line. He brought in their 2 starting corners are transfers. Connie Walker from Louisville, 6'2", wanted more size. Little Woody Washington wasn't getting it done for Brent Venables. And Des Malone, a 6-foot corner from San Diego State. Now, they're top 5 in sacks, and they're top 10 in tackles for loss. They're top 3 in turnover margin. They're top 4 in takeaways, 8 forced fumbles, 5 interceptions. Any of those numbers mean anything to you for this game? Jaden Blue coming off a couple of fumbles against Mississippi State. Do you keep him catching the football on the perimeter and let Quintravian Wisner handle the runs between the tackles, Eric?
Chip, I'm going to answer all of that. I'm sorry. This is why I love being able to do this show with you, because I could not look up Chip. There's no way Barry Switzer
beat Texas.
Chip, I see people on the sideline wearing OU hats. Barry Switzer, if I am slandering you, I apologize. I'm not believing that you just found a beat Texas hat, because I see people there with white. I see people in OU gear in a white hat with kind of like a cursive print Oklahoma hat. So just say that as take that for what it is. But that's why I love doing the show with you, Chip, because I get nuggets like that, and that's incredible. I just had to look that up.
Have you ever seen a coach wearing a hat that says beat the other team?
Chip, I am not going to derail this podcast, but the only time I've ever seen a coach wear a hat that was not the apparel of the university he was coaching, ironically, is a Texas tie-in, Butch Davis, when he was on the outs with the university administration. Chip, he coached his final home game and would not don FIU attire. He wore a Navy sweater and a Navy hat. I digress. Back to current times, back to the question you asked me. Yeah, turnovers come in bunches. I am a firm believer that turnovers come in bunches. That's how it works. Because I think you and I both have covered enough football to where teams would do anything for a turnover, and they go weeks without being able to get a turnover or multiple turnovers. They'll just get one here or there on a special teams play, but the defense can't force one. And then we've covered teams, Chip, where they just come in bunches. So yes, those numbers do mean something to me. Considering the fact that OU's played relatively speaking, a tough schedule. Not saying that Auburn is great by any stretch of the imagination, but they've played, no disrespect to UL Monroe, which Brian Vincent's got that team at 4-1, but they've played some of the tougher, out of conference opponents in relation to Texas, right? I know they played, if memory serves me correct, they've played Tulane and played Houston. Now Temple, obviously not that great, but both Tulane and Houston, you would say are tougher opponents than UL Monroe and UTSA. So I can buy in some of the turnovers that they're creating as teaching points, as effort. You asked me about Jaden Blue. Chip, no, I would not tinker anything with Jaden Blue. He's either going to have to work through this on the field, or he's not going to be on the field. It's as simple as that. You can't be half pregnant, right? You can't. Jaden Blue's too dynamic of a player, someone who spent the entire offseason talking about, I bulked up to run between the tackles. No. And quite frankly, Jaden's going to be in his head if the ball's only coming to him on the perimeter, or they're using him in a way that's not like they were using him before, then he's going to be, especially in his head, like, man, I got to hold on to the football. And then when you start playing in your head in that way, that's when you make mistakes. No, if Steve Sarkisian is going to use Jaden Blue, I want to see him running between the tackles, and he's either going to fumble the ball and then he won't see the field, or he's going to hang on to the ball and he will see the field. It's as simple as that for me, Chip.
Yeah. Texas, here's a couple of nuggets. The two quarterbacks who've had the most success throwing the football against the OU defense, Donovan Smith at Houston, who lit up Texas pretty good, threw a couple touchdown passes to Matthew Golden in a game that got a little hairy there in the fourth quarter last year, Houston against Texas. Donovan Smith completed 24 of 28 passes, and that was, he threw for 260 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So high completion rate, but not a bunch of pay dirt. Peyton Thorne of Auburn completed 21 of 32 passes for 338 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And that interception was a pick six, 63-yard pick six by OU linebacker Kip Lewis, which turned out to be the game-turning score, gave OU a 24-21 lead. They won the game. After trailing 21-10, they won it 27-21. All right. Eric, back to the depth. Both of these teams have more depth than they had last year, but OU's receiving core is depleted. We are not expecting to see Jaleel Farouk, who had a bunch of big plays against Texas last year, Andrell Anthony, who had some big plays before he got hurt in this game a year ago, and Nick Anderson, the 6'5" receiver who caught the game-winning touchdown 15 seconds left last year. And Deion Burks, the Purdue transfer who leads this OU team in receptions, is questionable. This is like, Texas fans think they got issues at the running back position. OU played Auburn without all of those receivers I just mentioned. That's a lot to put on Michael Hawkins and Brennan Thompson and J.J. Hester, who are the 6th and 7th receivers on the depth chart, Eric.
No, I agree with you. And that's actually, and, keep an eye out for our Know Your Longhorn Foe Q&A that will be published by the time you're watching this. It will actually be out. Shout out to Tom Green, who does a great job covering the Sooners for Sooners 24/7. That's one of the questions I posed him, because I find the receiver situation very interesting. Deion Burks was supposed to come in and be an upgraded Drake Stoops. That was, from people, Chip, I know you know this as well. When we were down at SEC Media Days, or I should say up at SEC Media Days, and we talked with, folks who cover OU and folks who are around the program, that was the hope, right? Is that, Drake Stoops, for all of the things he wasn't an athletic marvel, that Deion Burks would come in and be able to kind of be an upgraded version of that. Well, he's been banged up. He's been a guy who's been banged up his entire career. He's been injured on the last SEC injury report, Chip. I had it up a second ago, so if I still have it up now, of course, the archives would be gone, but it was something like you talked about, like 4 or 5 Oklahoma receivers were listed on that with varying, statuses, right? So that's something I find really interesting. Now, the flip side of that, and this is kind of where I've been toying around in my head, you know this better than I. Crazy things happen in this rivalry, right? Caleb Williams came off the bench and threw for 8 billion touchdowns and yards all over the place and whatnot. And of course, that was a different Texas defense, certainly not the Texas defense that is going to take the Cotton Bowl field on Saturday. But I don't anticipate Michael Hawkins being someone who, and for Chip, you talk about this, he's a DFW kid, right? So, you come home, you get a chance to play in front of your family in that area. It means something, but I don't see him coming in and being a guy's going to throw for 250, 300 yards anyhow. I don't think that was in the cards regardless, but especially with the injuries at receiver, I just don't see that being part of the game plan. Again, I think if Oklahoma's going to win this game, It's going to be kind of the old school, quote unquote, football, timely conversions, keeping the ball on the ground. Hawkins will make plays and extending plays with his legs, those type of timely conversions. And the defense stifling Texas's offense. And quite frankly, one last thing that I want to throw out there, Chip. Steve Sarkisian talked about it. I haven't heard him talk about it since last year. He said that when Texas's offensive line had struggles last year, when teams threw things out there that weren't on tape, right? Is that a situation that you see that again this year, right? Where it's like, hey, Texas's offensive line is definitely performing better than they were entering last year's Red River Shootout. But Texas's offensive line allowed a season-high 5 sacks, 2 to Ethan Downs in last year's game. This is a situation where you throw everything but the kitchen sink out there and try to pressure Quinn Ewers and make things happen that way. That's what I'm more focused on, because I don't think, especially given the receivers, that OU can win it that way.
Yeah, I think if you're the Texas defense, you just load up to stop the run and trust your DBs to play pass defense. You maybe play a bunch of base defense with your fast linebackers who help seal the edge so that Hawkins doesn't get loose. It was about 4 plays in the Auburn game that Hawkins made. He had a 48-yard run. He had a long pass that helped the OU offense score the meager points that they scored. And credit to them. They won the game after holding the ball for 47 plays. That's ridiculous. Like last year, OU was number 4 in the nation in scoring offense. Jeff Lebby was going fast. Of course, he had Dylan Gabriel and all those receivers that we mentioned that are now on the injury list. So I think it's a pretty simple recipe for the Texas defense. Now, I agree with you. I think OU is going to bring every exotic blitz. They're probably inventing blitzes right now as we speak, Eric, because they're going to try to get Quinn Ewers off his mark, uncomfortable, before he can deliver the ball downfield. Because we know Steve Sarkisian is a maestro in the RPO game, the screen game. He has his receivers run their curls at 20 yards so that those linebackers have to get super deep in their drops, which is not comfortable for them. And that's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. The Texas offensive line trying to protect Quinn Ewers against every stunt, game, blitz imaginable from Brent Venables and Zach Alley. So probably not talking enough about special teams.
Sure.
Eric, OU's got a good punting game, if you will. And, they're solid in the special teams. Texas has not made much noise in the special teams department this year, which is a good thing. No news is good news typically, but sometimes you can make plays. Silas Bolden had a 20-yard punt return against Mississippi State. Not much else in the return game. Your thoughts on Texas's special teams and who gets that check mark?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would give the check. You know what? No, scratch that. I was getting ready to give the check mark to Oklahoma. But let's pause for a second. And I Chip, you and I'll have to go back and check the archives. I feel like we did a question in the off season or in fall camp about yards per punt that Michael Kern would average either entering this game or for the season. I can't remember if it was entering this game or if it was for the season. But
it was right around 40.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Because we were talking about freshmen or freshman punters. Yeah. I can't remember if that was entering OU or the season. Let's come back to that. Nevertheless, he's at 43 or 42.9, right? So Kern's exceeding my expectation and yours And I mean, I know I had high expectations for him coming out of St. Thomas Aquinas, but all things considered, now granted, 11 punts through 5 games ain't a ton, right? It's a little over 2 punts per game. But when he's been asked to kick it, he's done well. He's done well. So, yeah, I was going to give the edge to Oklahoma. But in my mind, give me Jeff Banks. Give me the totality of Will Stone, Bert Auburn, Lance St. Louis. We always forget about those guys. In addition to Matt Golden, again, Steve Sarkisian called it out. Texas ain't rolling with a bunch of ain'ts today. I'm getting fired up. Texas isn't getting a ton of kick returns because playing well, right? That's how that works. In the punt return game, yeah, you probably want to get a little more out of Silas Bolden. I think part of that is, and if you've seen Silas's punts, Chip, how many times or punts he's had the opportunity to return, how many times has he kind of had something that's rolled his way, right? We're talking about playing against UL Monroe and UTSA and Colorado, where punts have kind of rolled his way, dribbled his way, and then he's kind of taking it and not getting much there. The one time he's gotten something, or one of the few times he's truly gotten something he could return, he's fearless back there. He's taking it and almost made something of it, right? So, no, you know what? I'm going to go with Texas special teams entering this, Chip.
Yeah, Tyler Keltner, the kicker for OU, is 6 of 7 on field goal attempts, including a long of 50 yards. Bert Auburn's, man, Steve Sarkisian took one of his field goals off the board. A 49-yarder that he doinked in off the right upright. So Bert only has 2 of 3 field goal attempts. He missed that 43-yarder against Michigan. All right. So the depth, Eric, Jalen Ford played all 82 snaps. There's no reason for, and Anthony Hill only played half of those snaps last year. Anthony Hill should have played more. The Texas OU game was one of his best games. Jalen Ford played all 82 snaps. It was easily his worst game. I think, and I asked Steve Sarkisian about that this week. He's like, we've played 5 linebackers. We feel good about playing 5, and we need to play them early in the game so that guys don't get run down, because Will Muschamp always said it. Once the guys in the front 7 are out of gas, they're done. You can't let them get to where they're out of gas, especially the big guys, but even in the front 7, especially with Dylan Gabriel running all over the place. So that was some bad miscalculation on the part of the Texas coaches. But I don't expect anyone on the Texas defense to play all, 50 snaps of this game? I mean, I'm starting to think I was being nice at 65. OU's averaging about 63 snaps this season. I mean, your thoughts on their depth, on Texas's depth?
Sure. Sorry about that. I didn't pick that up. Sorry about that. No, listen, Sark addressed it Monday, right? When he was asked about, I think, Chip, you asked him that question, as a matter of fact, in relation to Jalen Ford, and Steve saying, yeah, at linebacker, we have way more depth as a team. They have way more depth. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Let's just start with the linebackers for one. Leonga Lafau is a much better player at this point in year 2 than he is in year 1. Someone that you can rotate into the linebacker rotation. Even a guy like Tyanthony Smith, freshman, maybe the stage a little too much for him, but nevertheless, if you had to get a couple snaps out of him, you have that. Colin Simmons, while not a linebacker, another edge player, certainly gives you depth. I mean, the edges as a whole, and Chip, in my mind, that's really where depth matters. And I'm not taking anything away from Jahdae Barron, who does a ton and did a ton at the Star, right? And the run fit and coverage and all the things that Jahdae did. But for me, man, it's those big boys up front. It's the pass rushers. It's the interior defensive linemen. Games like this, I referenced Butch Davis once on this podcast, so I'll just tell you, Coach Davis used to say to me, hey, on a hot day, I need at least double digits, if not more than that, in terms of defensive linemen that you're going to play. You need those guys to be fresh. in those big moments. If you're facing, and you talked about loading up the box and stopping the run, if you got a 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, I want Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Jermaine Lole, Bill Norton. I want those guys fresh so that they can come in and just pin their ears back, rear down, and rush and stop the run, right? I want Colin Simmons. It's the reason why, listen, we can come back to this after the OU game or maybe after the Georgia game. I don't know. But we've talked about Colin Simmons' snap count and where that should be in relation to Trey Moore. I'm 10 toes down, Chip. I want Trey Moore focused on one thing over the next 2 weeks, and that's getting 4 sacks. If Colin Simmons can give you 4 sacks over the next 2 games, 2 apiece, Texas in great shape. That's just my opinion. Let Bill Norton, let Ethan Burke, let Barron Sorrell, Justice Finkley, those guys play the run. Not that Colin hasn't done. Colin's actually done a very nice job for a true freshman playing the run. But in games like this, those opportunities he's going to get to rush the passer, I want to make him big plays. So, yeah, no, to your point, Chip, the depth is huge. And, of course, briefly on the offensive side, it's there. Outside of running back, right? That's the one where you really hope you don't have to. This isn't a game where Jaden Blue or Quintravian Wisener or Jarrett Gibson needs to carry the ball 20-something times. This is a game where you need to split some of those reps. But you got the depth at receiver, tight end, you're good. But defensively, especially up front, that's where I think this comes into play, Chip.
Yeah, this is a great chess match. I wrote about it today over at horns247.com. Quinn Ewers and Steve Sarkisian's offense against Danny Stutzman and Brent Venables' defense. You could throw Billy Bowman in there too, because Bowman actually had a better game than Stutzman did last year. But and the guy that no one's talking about for OU is their free safety, Robert Spears Jennings, who is getting it done in coverage. He's got an interception, and he is their number 1 blitzer. He's got 2.5 tackles for loss. He's making plays all over the place. Number 3 for the Oklahoma Sooners. So they're getting really good play out of their safety position. Billy Bowman, the strong safety, and Robert Spears Jennings, who has been there. He's just, the light's gone on for him. So, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch Steve Sarkisian in that chess match with Brent Venables and Zach Alley, the defensive coordinator for OU. All right, Eric. You ready for some take it or leave it?
I am absolutely ready for some take it or leave it, Chip.
All right, let's do it. All right, and if you're watching us on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel, we will roll on with some take it or leave it. Eric, usually we keep score. I'm not sure that we had scoreable take it or leave it last week. How we do?
You are correct. We did not. The 2 questions were 3 questions, excuse me. First one was about Quinn Ewers' Heisman odds. So we will come back to that next week. Is what will Quinn Ewers' Heisman odds be after the OU game? And then your underrated player on offense and defense after Steve Sarkisian labeled phase 1 of the season over. So not scoreable. One of them will be scored next week, but I am still comfortably ahead.
Whatever. All right, let's get to it this week with some take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it, number 1. Quintravian, his mama named him Quintravian, so don't call him Trey. Wisener finishes with more carries than Jaden Blue. Take it or leave it.
You know what? I'm gonna vote with my head here, and I'm gonna take this because Quintravian Wisener has the best yards per carry average. He's the only available scholarship running back who has not fumbled this year. And he's from DeSoto. Let the DFW kid eat in front of the home fans. I love Quintravian Wisener, his swag, his confidence, his smarts, football IQ. I'm okay with Quintravian Wisener finishing this game with more carries than Jaden Blue, although Jaden Blue is going to finish with more receptions. Eric, what say you?
I am going to leave this
Ooh.
one. So this will give Chip an opportunity to get back in the race here. Jaden Blue feels like a really motivated player. And not to say that all players aren't motivated, but quite frankly.
Right, this is a crossroads moment for him.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, quite frankly, this is a make or break moment. Huge game, huge circumstances, coming off a bye week. You know they've hammered this home. If Jaden Blue, for whatever reason, isn't able to hang on to the football, or maybe, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, he showed an inability in practice. I guess that we wouldn't know. But if he shows an inability to hang on to the football in this game, then you have a real problem, right? So that is why I am leaving this one, Chip.
Okay. All right, take it or leave it. Number 2, Eric, Oklahoma finishes with at least 100 yards rushing against Texas. Take it or leave it.
Chip, I'm going to take it. Strange things happen in this game. I don't think Oklahoma is going to rush for anything crazy. I don't think they're going to rush for 150, 160. But I could see Michael Hawkins using his legs and breaking out for a 25, 30-yard scamper. Now, granted, of course, sack yards come into play, right? But nevertheless, I could see him breaking out for a scamper that, or a reverse or something like that, that gives OU some rushing yards that aren't quite just turning around and handing the ball off, that get them just over 100, Chip. What about you?
You know what? I've got to make up some ground. So I am going to leave this. I think Texas holds OU under 100 yards rushing. I think Texas's depth, and plus Tennessee held them to 36 yards on 34 carries. Come on, Texas. What do you got? Are you better than the Volunteers or not? So I'm going to leave this, even though I'm a little reaching for the Tums on that, because, Michael Hawkins did have a 48-yard run against Auburn. But anyway, take it or leave it, number 3.
Take it or leave it, number 3. Quinn Ewers throws at least 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Take it or leave it.
This is kind of Quinn has been really good in the big games at not turning the ball over. So I know he's averaged 2 turnovers in this game, but I'm going to take this. Quinn Ewers threw for 3 touchdowns and no interceptions against Alabama. He threw for 3 touchdowns and no interceptions against Michigan. I think Quinn Ewers is locked in, like he was in Tuscaloosa, like he was in Ann Arbor. I got Quinn Ewers with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So I am leaving this, Eric.
All right. And this is not just because you left it. I have been really impressed with Quinn Ewers' ability to protect the football. And I think especially in a game of this magnitude, I am leaving this. I think Quinn, and we talked about this the other day, I thought Quinn would throw for 250 and 2 touchdowns. I'm still there. So I'm leaving it. I don't think the interception happens, but I also don't think he throws for 3 or more.
Okay.
So I'm leaving it, Chip.
Okay. There you have it, kids. Hopefully you can taste the corny dogs from here. Hopefully you're going to the game. If you're thinking about it, you should go. It's a bucket list event. I call it the greatest game day atmosphere in sports. All sports. This game. That's how special it is. Thanks for listening to this Red River Shootout edition of the Flagship Podcast. Please like and subscribe. to the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Feel free to give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcast. That would, make our bosses happy. Be nice. And if you're not already an annual member at Horns 24/7, we've got a 50% off Red River Shootout special going. And you definitely want to take advantage of it because it's only like $3 a month, for crying out loud. And you're getting, as an annual member, you're getting VIP access to all the team sites on the preeminent 24/7 sports network. So for Eric Henry, I am Chip Brown. Until next time, we'll see you over at horns247.com. Enjoy the state fair, the sights, the sounds, the smells, and we'll be back to recap it Saturday night. See you then. Stay safe and keep the faith.